intangible piece of cultural heritage. And in the year 2000, Aurora was finally able to lay eyes on her homeland. On a trip to the Lebanon-Israel border. For the first time, she met her aunts, who still live on the other side. They asked an Israeli border guard to pass a piece of jewelry across the border fence.
This ring? This one? Yeah. This is from Palestine.
It's a gold ring made from what looks like a spoon from their old house, to which Zorora still has keys. A Jewish Israeli family is now living there. Zorora grew up with her parents' trauma, but she also grew up with their stories about what they described as coexistence between Jews and Arabs in what was then called Palestine before 1948. The olives of Palestine were shared among everyone back then, she says. Now, as a refugee in Lebanon, she can't buy property. And so she hunches over her needlepoint in a rented workshop in this infamous camp, singing a Palestinian ballad about a homeland she's never set foot in. Lauren Frere, NPR News, in the Shatila refugee camp in Beirut.
A school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee has reignited calls for gun reform. Students once again marched at the Tennessee State Capitol yesterday, days after a student at Antioch High School fatally shot a classmate and himself. As Mariana Pacquiao of member station WPLN reports, the shooting comes less than 2 years after another tragedy unfolded at the Covenant School.
The chants, the signs, even some of the faces in the crowd are the same as 2 years ago. But this time around, demonstrators are less optimistic. A groundswell movement for gun reform after the Covenant School shooting in 2023 did not sway Tennessee's Republican supermajority.
We're not naive.
That's Drew Spiegel, a sophomore at Vanderbilt University and a survivor of a 2022 mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois.
We know that the odds are stacked against us. We know that Republicans in this state, a lot of them have no intentions of making our communities safer.
Since Spiegel first started demonstrating at the Tennessee Capitol in 2023, the House has blocked off half the gallery seats from the public, and the Speaker now has the power to ban spectators from the State House for up to 2 years for disruptive behavior.
Until the last year or two, this has really not been an issue.
That's House Majority Leader William Lamberth. Earlier this month, he explained why the rule was necessary to a group of reporters.
There are 10 or 12 people that like to go up into the gallery and holler and shout little insults and cause a scene and make it all about them.
Last time the State House saw a crowd this big showing up for gun reform, it was because Tennessee Governor Bill Lee had called a special session to address concerns after the Covenant School shooting. This week's special session is all about school vouchers, disaster relief, and immigration enforcement.
Are they going to be doing anything about the guns? No, because they'd rather attack our immigrant and refugee neighbors.
Governor Lee says he wants Tennessee to be ready to help with the president's mass deportation efforts.
What I believe is that President Trump was elected saying what he wanted to do, and the people elected him in a very strong fashion, and I am supportive of his strategies going forward.
Members of Nashville's Latino community say the timing is rough. The father of Jocelyn Correa Escalante, the student killed at Antioch High School last week, says he fled from Guatemala to give his daughter a chance at life free from violence. For NPR News, I'm Mariana Bacallao in Nashville.
This is NPR News.
And this is Morning Edition on the perfect mix of BBC, NPR, and KJZZ News as we get you going. On this Tuesday, it's January 28th, 2025, and I'm Phil Latzman. Good morning. And rebel fighters, who are now part of Syria's new de facto government, have been destroying large shipments of Captagon, an addictive drug that was mass-produced by the ousted Assad regime. We'll have more coming up in about 15 minutes on KJZZ's Morning Edition.
KJZZ is supported by Primavera, an accredited online school for grades K through 12. Students learn from the comfort of home with a flexible schedule, personalized support, and unlimited private tutoring. More at primaveraonline.com.
You test your knowledge of the Grand Canyon State with our A to Z quiz. And this week's questions, one of them is what mining town has an historic jail?
Because it's a simple question, right? But it's outrageously complex.
Wilder says primary systems that keep the Gulf healthy, all based on cold, deep water, remain stable. But waters are still warming, much like they are all over the world due to climate change. And many species are in decline.
There's a lot of change happening in result to this warm water. And then the pressures from overfishing, likely, and perhaps even more so, are taking a great toll.
The report finds that more Gulf species populations are decreasing than are improving. Those in decline include the whale population and different species of seabirds and fish. But there's also evidence to suggest that conservation efforts are working. Sea turtle populations, for example, are rebounding. Nina Kravinsky, KJZZ News, Hermosillo.
It's been 1 week since Donald Trump entered office, and we're already seeing a record number of pardons, all sorts of deportations, and his early efforts to reshape the civil service. But it's not Elon and Doge making the big cuts, at least not yet. It's the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management. We're going to spend some time in that office on the next Today Explained.
Today Explained, today at 12:30 after here and now on KJZZ. No rain yet. About a 20% rain chance today in Phoenix, a high of 62, staying cool. It's 46 at 6:34.
Good morning, I'm Layla Fulton. When you order something online, you expect to actually get the physical item. But when Sylvester Franklin ordered tools to his Georgia home from a China-based online retailer called Alibaba, he got a printed photo of the drill he paid for. He was also expecting the pressure washer he paid $22 for. Instead, he got a screw. Franklin's been asking for a refund since November. Still no luck. I guess the screw was a message. It's Morning Edition.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from the Kauffman Foundation, providing access to opportunities that help people achieve financial stability, upward mobility, and economic prosperity, regardless of race, gender, or geography. Kauffman.org. From the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio, and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism.
It's worked miraculously. The government issued a series of stimulus package from the second half of September, and already we just had the announcement that the 2024 Chinese GDP last year achieved target for exactly 5%. Although a lot of people feel there is a big gap in terms of the actual day-to-day lives.
You mean people's lives are not reflected by the numbers the government is putting out?
Yes, in the sense that people don't feel the economy is growing at 5%. On top of that, the unemployment rate is much higher than before, and especially for young people. So this is quite worrisome. There's another very important factor, which is the wealth effect. When the real estate was growing in the past several years, that means even if you weren't working, even if you weren't doing anything, every day you were becoming richer than the day before. So you had a very solid wealth effect for you to have the confidence to spend the money. But nowadays, your income is not growing as fast. Your unemployment probabilities is increasing a lot, and your wealth effect is no longer working.
The Chinese government has put a lot of emphasis and enormous investment in trying to dominate what it sees as industries of the future. Wind power, solar power, electric vehicles, electric batteries, various kinds of high tech. Are those investments paying off?
They're definitely paying off in terms of how much China is leading, if not dominating, certain factors and industries in the world. But the world is getting more and more cautious of that, and China is learning to be more and more mindful of how other countries are reacting and giving feedbacks to that.
What do you mean by other countries being cautious? Worried about Chinese power?
So take electric vehicles, for instance. Many countries have looked into this and trying to put a new ban or very high tariffs on China. So China knows that this is coming.
So President Trump has talked of imposing tariffs on China broadly on February 1st. Do Chinese exporters assume they will pay that extra cost, which is what Trump says? Or is this a cost they can pass on to Americans who buy their stuff?
Of course, ultimately, it's the consumer that always pays the final price. Now, China does give a lot of subsidies, so the Chinese government would pick up a portion of this, but that would be trivial when it compared to really, it will be ultimately the American consumers that will be paying for this.
So it raises the price of products that China sells in the United States. American consumers pay more. Presumably that means they buy a little less. Is China ready for that shock or pressure or disappointment, whatever it turns out to be?
I will first challenge the notion that if people will be spending more. In theory, yes, when a price goes up, then you buy less. But in practice, that doesn't happen all the time. It is very, very difficult to find top quality products and with very, very affordable prices that China has managed to produce. Part of that is how China has created a very comprehensive supply chain, and that economy of scales is something that no other country in the world is able to compare and compete. I traveled to some of these coastal provinces in China where they do a lot of clusters of manufacturing. It's amazing how, say, all of a sudden you need a particular kind of screwdrivers, and you can just call the suppliers. They will be able to deliver it to your door with their own trucks within 20 minutes. Again, it's the very comprehensive and scalable supply chain that China has.
Well, Tianlu, it's a pleasure talking with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's an assessment from China, one of many we're sure to hear from both sides of the ocean if U.S. tariffs do take effect.
When the wildfires struck Los Angeles, people had to leave their homes so quickly that many of them left behind medical necessities. Things like prescriptions and inhalers, things that can be really hard to replace. NPR's Alejandra Borunda went to a pop-up event where evacuees could get the medical help they needed.
Dora Alman had lived in her Altadena home for 53 years before the Eden Fire came raging through.
My husband decided at 9:30 that it was time to go, and so I had 5 minutes to get everything together.
They took almost nothing.
The things that we were wearing, essentially, is all we took.
And the next morning, she realized something.
And I left my glasses, my latest glasses, at the house.
Dora's daughter, Christina, couldn't get her an appointment for new glasses until late February. So when they heard that there'd be a team at this health event that could do eye exams and grind lenses for glasses on demand, they got straight in the car and drove over.
And here they are. Aren't they beautiful? Doesn't she look great?
It's not just glasses.
We understand that a lot of patients can't get into their primary care doctor.
That's Carla Rugamas. She's a nurse with the nonprofit Vida Mobile Clinic.
They lost their medication, so this is a place, a safe space where they can come in, get their refills.
And it's not just medications. They pulled together clothes donation and veterinary care to help animals who had evacuated. Like Mitzi, the 14-year-old Yorkie, and Leia, the heavy-breathing French bulldog.
Thank you.
There were also mental health professionals at the event. They just wanted people to know that they're available to help in English, Spanish, and other languages for free whenever people feel ready.
We know that patients are going to help not just today, next week, next month, but the years to come.
Kennedy Caskey works for the healthcare support organization AmeriCares. It supported the event. Caskey deploys all over the country after natural disasters, which she knows are getting more intense because of climate change. Scientists determined the LA fires were more likely and more intense because of it.
Climate change is just an ever-evolving thing and getting worse and worse. And so this past year, I've only had a 6-week break or 8-week break since Helene.
But it only takes one disaster to upend people's lives, like for Dora.
According to my husband, it's time to downsize, and nature took care of that.
But at least now she has glasses to help her see where she's going next. Alejandra Borunda, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
And this is Morning Edition on 91.5 and KJZZ.org through our free mobile app, or ask your smart speaker to play KJZZ. And coming up, bookshop.org allows readers to buy ebooks while exclusively supporting local bookstores. We'll hear how that works coming up in about 10 minutes on KJZZ's Morning Edition.
KJZZ is supported by Ballet, Arizona, celebrating a new location in the East Valley. The School of Ballet, Arizona now offers classes for toddlers and children ages 2 to 12. Learn more at balletaz.org/East Campus.
A check of KJZZ News now at 6:43. In northern Arizona, tribal leaders are informing residents that the country's immigration agencies are not targeting indigenous residents amid unsubstantiated claims. At the same time, they want constituents to be prepared if they do. From KJZZ's Frontiers Desk in Flagstaff, Michel Morisco reports.
Officials from the Navajo Nation and the White Mountain Apache tribe have stated